Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Koozie. Today's video is going to be for streamers across the board. For the ones that just downloaded OBS and don't know where to get started, to the streamers that have been in the game for a hot one that want to figure out how to improve their stream quality. This is going to be a long video, but there will be timestamps in the description below, as well as a couple links for the softwares that I mentioned. So let's get right into it. Okay, so let's get started. Click settings. Default language is English. Theme is defaulted to dark, but there's a couple of different themes here that offer like a light setting and all that stuff. Automatically check for updates on startup is checked. Open stats dialog on startup is unchecked. Everything in the output section is unchecked except for automatically start replay buffer when streaming. We'll get to the replay buffer here in a second. Source alignment snapping. This is whenever you are setting up your scenes and you want to line up your sources and all that stuff. This controls how sensitive it snaps to an edge or a source or whatever. You can just play around with that. It defaults to 10. Snap sources to edge of screen. Snap sources to other sources is also checked. Snap sources to horizontal and vertical center is unchecked. In the projector settings, I don't have anything really, checked right there. System tray. You want to enable that. Minimize the system tray when started. Always minimize the system tray instead of taskbar. Preview. Make sure everything is unchecked. Importers. Make sure that that is checked. Search known locations for scene collections when importing. This is for whenever you get a new PC or whatever. You can just export your scene collection to a flash drive or a hard drive. You can just plug that in and copy and paste the files to your documents folder or wherever. In studio mode, everything is unchecked except for show preview program labels. Multi-view, everything is checked, and then multi-view layout, horizontal top 8 scenes. So that's your general section. Let's go to stream. Now this is all just depending upon where you stream to. There's all kinds of places you can stream in OBS. You can go to Twitch, YouTube, Facebook Live, Restream.io, which is the platform that you can use to stream to multiple platforms at once. Twitter Periscope, which is just live streaming on Twitter. And then if you go to show all, there's a plethora, if you will, of multiple platforms. You pick your service. I think for all of these, it's either going to come up for server as auto or like default or whatever. I stream on Facebook and Twitch, so I'm not too familiar with the YouTube setup. And whenever you set it up for the first time, it's going to say connect account recommended or whatever. So for Twitch specifically, this is how it's going to look for you. You can either enable the bandwidth test mode or disable it, whatever your preference. We'll get that set up here in a minute. And then that pretty much takes care of this. And like I said, it varies for each different service. So next is the output section. It's going to default to simple, right? I'm recording right now, so I can't do anything here, but I have changed mine from simple to advanced. You have a lot more things that you can do, all right? So for streaming, my streaming PC specs are not top tier. I did build my streaming PC. I do run dual PC, but even when I was on a single PC setup, it wasn't like top of the line, but I do have an NVIDIA graphics card, and I think for the majority of NVIDIA graphics cards, your bit rate is going to default to 6,000. I think by default, without you putting anything in there, it's going to default to like 4,500 or even 2,500. But I think as long as you select your encoder to be your NVIDIA NVENC H.264 new or whatever it is, I think it's going to default to that unless you have your encoder set to your GPU or your graphics card. I know for platforms like Facebook that cap you at 4,500 kilobits per second for your bit rate, you definitely want to leave this in-for streaming service encoder settings unchecked. Rescale output, you don't really have to worry about. Rate control is defaulted to CBR. That's what I use. I don't really have any issues with it. Your bit rate is like if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, set it to 6K. The reason why your bit rate is a combination of your internet speed mixed with your graphics card, your equipment, right? I don't have super duper internet. I run 100 up, 100 down. So but I still run at 6,000 kilobits per second. Now, granted, my connection, my kilobits per second fluctuates a lot whenever I stream. It sometimes drops all the way down to 1,500. Sometimes it goes up to 7K. It's just one of those things. It's really about your internet speed. But across the board, 6,000 kilobits per second is the bitrate default for any NVIDIA graphics card. Your keyframe interval is defaulted to 0. 0 means automatic. Your presets here vary. I have mine set to max quality because my system can run it. My profile, I think it defaults to main, but I have set it to high. Look ahead, I'm not entirely sure what it does, so I left it unchecked. Psycho visual tuning, I have that checked by default. GPU, some people are like, yeah, I'll run 2 GPUs, so the number is going to be 2. I put one time, and I went to go live and it didn't do anything. Like it gave me an error, so I had to switch that back to 0. So if this is 0, then just leave it alone. Max B frames is going to be defaulted to 2. All right, now that takes care of the streaming. I don't record and stream at the same time. I'm either streaming or recording. However, you want to have your recording tab set up in the event that you want to get into recording things later. So of course, I'm recording right now, so I can't change anything, but type is going to be defaulted to standard. Your recording path is just basically where you want things to go. What I would recommend is go into your documents folder in your Explorer, right click in there, make a new folder, and then title it clips/recordings or whatever you want to, and then select that, and then click open, and it's going to set it right there. This is where all of your recordings, clips from the replay buffer, which I'll again explain that here in a little bit. This is where everything is going to go. Your recording format, I think, defaults to like MKV or like MP4 or something. I set mine to MOV. It's honestly just preference, really. Audio track, I only have track 1 selected because every audio source is ran through audio track 1. This is more beneficial if you want to like isolate things, I guess. My encoder is the same as my stream, NVIDIA NVENC H.264. Rescale output is defaulted to 1920 by 1080. I'm not going to rescale it, no need. Custom mixer settings, I don't know if the devs meant to say mixer settings or what, but anyways, that's going to be left blank. So whenever you pull this up for the first time, it's going to default to your like X264, your motherboard encoder. You don't want to do that, especially if you don't have a beefy like CPU or processor. So as soon as you set this to your NVIDIA or your graphics card, it's going to pull up this. Now this is key, all right, for down the road whenever we get into the replay buffer. All right, you want to set your rate control at default, which is CBR. Now your bit rate, you're going to notice it says 8,000, and you're like, well, Kuzi, wasn't your streaming one at like 6,000? So how's that work? Okay, so with recording, you can record at a higher bit rate because you're not requiring your internet to be a factor, right? Also, the higher the bit rate, the better the quality. However, if you set it too high, you're gonna blow up your GPU. Not really, but it's not gonna work. Again, the GPU that's in my streaming PC does not have a lot of juice to it, right? It's a 750 Ti. Don't at me, bro. So I have mine set at 8,000 kilobits per second. People with like a 2070 or even, you know, by the time you're seeing this, probably the new 30 series, you could probably crank this bad boy up to about 12,000 kilobits per second. This will factor in later on. This just basically improves the quality. The higher the kilobits per second, the better the quality. Keyframe interval is going to be 0. I have my preset set to max performance just because I don't want it to really overpower the quality of my stream. So I have it set there. I think it defaults to max quality. Profile is high here as well. Look ahead is unchecked. Psycho visual tuning is checked. GPU 0, max B frames 2. Next tab, audio. Audio bitrate, I believe, is defaulted to 160. I don't recall changing this at all, okay? Replay buffer, all right? So by default, it's gonna be unchecked, all right? So your replay buffer, let's talk about this. This is something that you can have on while you are streaming, and this will allow you to create clips while you are streaming without having to go through your platform. This eliminates all that. So you want to have your enable replay buffer checked, right? And then your maximum replay time. This again depends on your setup. So because my setup isn't the strongest, I limit mine to the last 30 seconds. The way it is whenever you are live and you have the replay buffer enabled. For instance, for me, my replay buffer records the last 30 seconds of the live stream, if that makes sense, from OBS. Whenever I have this set to 30 seconds, and it's going to record it at 8,000 kilobits per second. Go down to the audio tab. Sample rate is defaulted to 44.1 kilohertz, and then channels, I think, is defaulted to stereo. Your desktop audio. This is how you're going to hear your alerts. You're going to use Discord, whatever. This is what it's going to come through. And it all just depends on how you have your devices set up. What I use is a Behringer Xenix Q502 USB mixer. So I have everything ran through that on my streaming PC. And so because in my system it is set as the default device, this is why it says default. Now if I pull it down, there's going to be a multitude of sources, but if you have whatever you hear your audio through set as your default device in your PC settings, then you're going to be good to go. Same thing with the mic. I use a Focusrite Scarlett CM25 mic that I got with the Scarlett 2i2 audio interface bundle. This mic, coupled with the filters that I've applied to it, which again, I'll show you here in a little while, I have had no issues with it whatsoever. But because it is the default communication device, it is then set to the default device in OBS. Everything else is disabled. Desktop audio too. I don't know what the hell that is. That's disabled. Meters, decay rate. All of this is default, really. Monitoring device. This is how you hear. Again, if everything is set as your default device in your PC, it's going to be default in here, and you shouldn't have any issues. There's plenty of troubleshooting videos out there should you run into any issues, so I would definitely recommend looking those up if you have to get to that bridge. But all of these are hotkeys. I have a Stream Deck that I use to hotkey everything, but don't worry, I'll show you how to get things like the replay buffer going on your just a keyboard if you don't have a Stream Deck. Video, let's talk about your resolutions here. Your base or canvas resolution should be defaulted to 1920 by 1080. All right, this is the size of your quote-unquote canvas. This is basically the size of your working station. All right. Your output or scaled resolution should be identical to your base canvas resolution. The only time this would technically need to change is if you have a weaker PC that can't really handle running the game, Discord, you know, your streamer dashboard, your alerts, all that stuff. If it can't handle that, you typically want to downscale it. So, you know, if you're running 1920 by 1080, you want to drop that down to like 1280 by 720 or something like that. And then your downscale filter is going to be defaulted to bicubic, I think, to improve the quality. But it also uses a little bit more CPU. Lanczos, I can't even say it, but I use that as my downscale filter. And because my system can run it, I default it to 60 FPS. Because that's the crispiest. All right. Hotkeys. This is where you can hotkey literally everything. It's got everything from your scenes to each individual source in that scene. If you want to sit down and hotkey everything, you know, you can do that. I wouldn't recommend it. Just make it really easy. Like, you know, bind your number key to, or your number pad to different things. But the most important thing that I want you to get out of this section right here is this section that says replay buffer. This is going to be huge. So for save replay, I have my hotkey bound to the home button on my keyboard. It's the group of keys right above the arrow key to the right side. It's got insert, home, page up, page down, delete, and end. This is what I have it defaulted to. Because if something cool happens during stream, I can just press that and then it's going to save to the folder that I told OBS to save it to. Going back to the replay buffer, if you go back up to this general tab, remember whenever I said in the output section, leave automatically start replay buffer when streaming checked, because as soon as I press start streaming, the replay buffer is going to start. Now, every time I click go live, I don't have to worry about cutting that on or remembering to cut it on. Like, all I have to worry about is just creating good content and remembering to clip it if something cool happens. Now on to the advanced tab. General. Your process priority, I believe, is set to normal by default. I think if you set it to high, it's going to help your performance and it not like overload your encoder or whatever. I don't know. Just look into that and mess around with it. Video, these are all default settings. Recording, file formatting, that's default. Don't really worry about that. Replay, buffer, file name, prefix. This is basically if I pull up my clips here. This is the folder that saves all of my clips, right? It's going to say replay and then the date and the time it was captured at. Your stream delay, if you're one of those people that, you know, you're running a tournament and you have to worry about stream snipers, you can enable this. And this is just depending on, you know, this is just how long you want the delay to be. Automatically reconnect is defaulted to enable, and 10 seconds is the default. Maximum retries is 20. Network, bind to IP should be set to default. The other thing that's huge, right? Again, I don't have a very strong internet connection. So like if it's more than just me on the internet, I run into dropping frames. My bitrate stays the same, but I drop frames. And so I looked into how to fix that, and it's quite simple. If you select dynamically change bitrate to manage congestion, that is going to allow you to keep your frame rate consistent, but it is going to drop your bit rate. So earlier, whenever I was talking about bit rate and all that stuff and how my internet connection drops to, or my bit rate drops to like 1500 or so, this is what I was talking about. It does that to preserve the frame rate quality of the stream. It makes it look kind of like pixely, because the lower your bit rate, the less clear it's going to be. At least I'm not dropping frames, am I right? Smile. Network optimization and enable TCP pacing is disabled. Enable browser source hardware acceleration. That's checked. Never disable hotkeys is set there by default. Okay, whenever you get done with all of this, which I would recommend doing this before you leave each and every tab, you want to click apply and okay. So we got the settings down. Let's talk sources and scenes. Scenes are basically collections of sources that allow you to kind of diversify your content, really. So if you want to have a screen where it's just you talking to chat, you can do that. If you want to have a scene specifically for Call of Duty, you can do that. If you want to have a scene specifically for Fortnite, Apex, Valorant, whatever game you play, you can do that too. So let's make a gameplay scene. I have here my display capture, which allows you guys to see what I'm doing. I was going to make a new scene, but that would cause the screen to go black and me talking, and that would be boring for content. So what you want to do to make a new scene, you want to press this plus down here in the scenes category. You want to make your new scene, title it gameplay. All right, and then you're gonna press OK. That's gonna bring up a blank scene. It's gonna pull up just like this, minus it'll look just like that. It'll come up black. You'll have your interface here, and then what you want to do is you want to start from the ground up. So let's add our Elgato capture card. So some people use game capture. I don't like to use that. I use video capture device. And if it's not in the existing, you're going to create new, title it Elgato. It'll pull up here. You'll see the display come up. And then what you'll do is you'll configure your settings in the game capture HD software that you get when you install your Elgato. From there, you can set your frame rate, you can set your resolution, you can do all of your color range settings and whatnot in that software. You don't really have to worry about anything with settings in OBS aside from just making sure that the device says Game Capture HD 60 number 01. And then down here at the bottom, capture audio only under audio output mode. And then check use custom audio device and make sure that the audio device is Game Capture HD 60S audio number 01. Whenever you get that set, press OK. And then we want to add our webcam. The sad part about streaming today is that if you want to make it, you have to have a webcam. I know that 2 years ago, whenever you looked up videos on how to get into streaming and stuff like that, the big thing was don't overinvest. Well, unfortunately, if you want to make this a career one day, you have to view it as starting a business. So what you have to do is, whenever it comes to starting a business, you've got to invest a lot of time, you got to invest a lot of money, but to stand out on any platform, you have to have a webcam. The rest is just icing on the cake to help you stand out from the rest. So let's add our webcam. Again, press the plus sign here, video capture device, and then you're going to create new webcam. Mine I already have in here, so we're going to select webcam. It's going to come up as this. Hi, how you doing? So we're going to double click our settings here, and by default, this is going to say resolution FPS type device default. Resolution is going to be something else like device default or something like that. I would change it to custom. Set your resolution to your canvas resolution, which is 1920 by 1080. Highest FPS if your PC can handle it. Video format, color space, color range, buffering, all that stuff should be left alone. But here's the key. Whenever I have a Logitech C9 22 Pro webcam. Whenever you pull it up, it's not going to look like this. It's going to look like this. Now, it's brighter, but look. You see how like slow and laggy it is? It's because it's trying to compensate for the low light. So what we're going to do, we're going to uncheck low light compensation. We're going to apply. And you notice how it didn't do anything with the brightness or the contrast. And that's because in OBS, the camera settings basically reset every single time after your PC has been off. So what I've done to adjust the brightness and the contrast and all of that other stuff, I have downloaded a software called Logitech Capture. You can go online. There will be a link in the description down below. That software allows you to adjust the brightness, the contrast, all the settings you want. And it saves it so that the only thing you need to do is uncheck low light compensation every time you fire up OBS whenever your PC has been off. So we click OK, and there's a couple other things that we'll do to our sources here in a little bit. Once we got all of our settings right here, we click OK, and then so basically our webcam is going to take up the entirety of the screen. So what we're going to do is we are going to select our webcam, and we're going to grab the top right corner, as you see, and we're sizing it down. Now, the thing is, with a webcam, easiest thing to do would be have a green screen, but I don't like to run a green screen just because I like to have stuff behind me as conversation pieces. If you don't have an ideal stream room set up and all that stuff, you know, it's messy behind you, whatever, you want to run a green screen. I don't really know how to set up a green screen, so look for other videos on that. If you have a webcam like mine, you definitely want to size it down to where it's not too small to where people can't see you, but you also want to make it small enough to where it doesn't overpower the gameplay, if that makes sense. So also, if you'll notice, I'm going to blow this up. There are areas like here that I don't want seen, right? Or like I don't want people seeing this fan, right? So how do you crop? Well, it's quite simple. What we're going to do is we're going to take the Alt button on our keyboard, hold that down, and grab this edge right here, and we're going to just pull it in to however far in we want to be seen. Okay, now that obviously looks off center, shocker. So we go over to the other side and crop it in, and now we have a nice square webcam. You can trim this on either side to make it more 1920 by 1080. You can then increase it. I have let go of the Alt button, and that's how I'm able to size it up like this. Now, if I do this, that's just going to make it to where you can adjust 2 dimensions rather than just the one. There you go. You got a nice clean webcam. People can see your face. They can see a little bit of your background. Like for instance, the guitar back there is a pretty good conversation piece. People ask me all the time, do you play music? And I'm like, yeah, actually. We want to put this into place that's not like overpowering the gameplay. We want to size it down a little bit to where, you know, it's just right. I like to go left center. Some people put theirs down below. Some people put them bottom left, bottom right. I've even seen people do things dead in the middle. But it's all just personal preference. Okay, so we have our webcam. We've got our gameplay. Everything is good to go. The rest is just added stuff, right? A lot of this, whenever it comes to setting up your scenes, it's all about personal preference. You can add overlays. It just depends on what you like. I'm very minimal, so I have a small overlay around my camera, a small overlay framing the entire gameplay scene, and I've got my sponsorships in the scene as well. You know, that way the majority of everything is just gameplay, if that makes sense. Now, what we want to do is we want to enhance these things. If you're a streamer like me who mainly plays Call of Duty Warzone right now, the game doesn't really look aesthetically pleasing. So we're going to do some stuff to enhance it, right? So I'm going to hide my webcam by pressing the little eyeball, and we're going to click on our game source by going to Elgato. We're going to right click it, sorry. That's going to pull up this screen here, and we want to go to filters, all right? Main thing to affect things visually, you want to add effect filters, but if you're playing a game like Call of Duty that is very loud the majority of the time, and you don't want it to overpower your voice, I would add what's called a limiter here. And what that does is it limits the max volume. So I put a subtle limiter here, basically at negative 1.9 decibels. The release time, I didn't do anything, so that's default. And that basically keeps it from, you know, peaking or sounding like complete doo-doo. So we do that. That takes care of the game audio not overpowering us. Down here in effect filters, we're going to add color correction. And how you do that, you just press plus and then select whichever filter you want to use. So the color correction, this allows you to kind of make the game look more vibrant and more colorful, but you got to be careful. Do it subtly, because too much really makes it look bad, but then too little makes it look like you didn't do anything at all. So I have my game set to negative 0.24 gamma, 0.06 contrast, 0.04 brightness, 0.18 saturation, and then 0 hue shift and 100 opacity. And then the icing on the cake is the sharpness filter. This is going to make your game look clearer, and it's going to set you apart from everybody else. You want to run your sharpen filter at a 0.1. That's subtle enough to where it increases the clarity, but it's also, you know, not too much, if that makes sense. Let's talk about our webcam. All right, so the webcam looks like this for a multitude of reasons. It comes from the settings that I have in the Logitech capture software, but it also comes from the same thing. If we right click our source, go to filters, no audio video filters, obviously, because I'm not using my webcam mic, so there's no need for, you know, audio to be picked up from it. For effect filters, I have a small sharpen filter enabled, just 0.11. Too much kind of makes it look all like staticky and stuff. It's weird. And then I have another thing called a LUT. A LUT is basically like your Instagram filter. That's the other thing I'll mention about the webcam is that if you turn off that low light compensation, you want to compensate for it by adding more light. You know, maybe that's switching the interface for your streamer dashboard from dark to light mode or whatever, you know, just to make it look more natural, I guess. So we've got our webcam, we've got our Elgato, and these are things, those two things right there, the sharpness and those filters are what is really going to set you apart. Let's talk audio. What you want to do is you want to click on the cog or the gear, however you say it, go up to filters, and then you want to apply a limiter. It's the same thing as the limiter we put on our Elgato. This basically prevents my voice from, you know, peaking and sounding really bad. You've got that. Then the compressor. Compression in audio is it turns up the volume on the times that you're talking really quiet. And then it also takes the times that you're talking really loud or talking like this, because you got shot by an R9 shotgun in Warzone with Dragon's Breath. And it balances things out. It compresses things, if that makes sense. Shocker. I believe the default ratio is set to 10.0. The threshold, that kind of controls how much compression you want. Your attack and release are set to default, 6 milliseconds for the attack, 60 milliseconds for the release. And basically all that is that is the amount of time it takes for the compressor to grab onto the sound and to release. So in this case, it takes 6 milliseconds for the compressor to grab the sound and 60 milliseconds to release it. And then two, whenever you compress something, depending on how much you have your threshold lowered, you have your output gain. This is for compensating. So whenever you lower your threshold, it's going to naturally lower the volume of your mic. A lot of times output gain is also called makeup gain. And so I have my makeup gain set to 12.7 decibels. And then last but not least, this is the icing on the cake, people. Your noise gate. All right, so the compression helps it sound balanced, and it helps it be kind of like even, you know, so I can be over here and the volume will be the same. It'll sound a little bit different, but the volume will be the same. I can be right up here, the volume will be the same. I can be back here, volume will be the same. That's compression. Noise gate is like an automatic mute. Okay, what it is it's a hypothetical gate that opens at a certain decibel level and closes at a certain decibel level. So for instance, for the noise gate on my mic, I have it to where the noise gate closes whenever the volume hits negative 30 decibels, and I have it to where it opens at negative 26 decibels. So if you're the type of person that has a lot of background noise, you can add noise suppression, but then it sounds like you're talking on Skype, which is nasty. So I would just run a noise gate. Again, with sound, this is all it's just like setting up your scenes. Personal preference. I'm not saying set it up this way and you'll be famous or anything like that. Like, it's all personal preference. You just have to be creative. You have to find what works for you. Adding like an alert box, right? So how do you add them? It's very simple. What you're going to do is go down here to the bottom in your sources section, hit the plus sign, and we are going to add a browser source. Because I already have these in here, I'm just going to pull this up for you and explain it. You have your alert box. You would create new, obviously, title it alert box, whatever. And then it's going to, because I have my dimensions set to 1920 by 1080 for this specific source, it takes up the entire thing. Now, whenever you pull up a brand new browser source, it's going to look a little something like this. And it's going to pull up as 800 by 600 and this default URL, okay? What we would do is, for instance, I'm going to do away with this. Since I use Stream Elements, I'm going to go online to streamelements.com. I already have logged in, so we're going to go to our dashboard. And then what you want to do is you want to go over to My Overlays. And what I like about Stream Elements is that you can design your own kind of like alert box. And you can go on there and look up how to do that. But since I already have one, I'm just going to go to preview here. It's going to pull up this new tab. It's going to be blank. But this link here is what you're going to add. So you highlight it. You can either right click and go down to copy, or you can press Control and C, and that's going to copy it. Then you go back to OBS here, and then you go to your browser source. You double click it. Go to the URL that says https :// OBS project, blah, blah, blah. And you highlight that, you delete it, and then you press Control V. And then this is going to pull up your link, right? I think I had to set mine to 1920 by 1080, but how we can test that is we can go back to Stream Elements or whatever we're rocking with here. We're going to snap this over to our, to the side here. And then we're going to pull this up, find a link or an alert, run it back, and now it's pulled up. So now we can adjust it and move it to wherever we want it to be on the scene. So I like mine to be up in the top right, like that. And you can do that for every single browser source. If you want to put up a COD stat tracker, if you play Call of Duty, then just go online, type in stat tracker overlay or whatever, and it's going to give you a similar situation. It's going to say, here's the URL to put into OBS or your streaming software, and you would add it just like this. Add a browser source. Let me hide my camera just so you can see. You're going to add a browser source, name it respectively, and then copy and paste the link. But yeah, the rest is just, you know, personal preference. The big thing about streaming is how your stream looks aesthetically, right? Obviously per personal preference. You know, you can be minimalistic, but you can still look professional, as well as how you interact with people. That is the biggest thing that I've learned in the short amount of time that I've been streaming, is that people could really care less about how good you are at a game, because if people really wanted to see good gameplay, they would watch YouTube videos on, you know, the best Call of Duty gamers or Valorant or whatever game you play, right? It's really about them wanting to be entertained. So you have to find that thing that sets you apart, that makes you entertaining, aside from somebody else. You know, you don't want to be a copy of somebody. You don't want to be somebody that you're not. You want to be yourself. Whatever that looks like, just go with it. The only other thing that I can think of is transitions here. I have my own personal transitions that look like this. Okay. I had a buddy of mine make them for me. His name's Chips. He streams on Twitch and Facebook. And for like $10, he can do it. He did it. And by default, it's going to be set to fade, right? But what you want to do is, if you get your own stinger transition, which is what it is, that's for custom, you're going to go to this add, go down to stinger, select stinger, and then it's going to pull up this right here. And then you're going to enter the name, click OK, and then it's going to pull up this screen. And you're just going to go into your files, wherever you saved that file, browse it, double click it, open it, and then it's going to pull up in here. Now, it depends on what you got going. You might need to switch some things around, or like adjust some things with like the fade time or whatever. Transition override is set to fade. Okay. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Hopefully you can, but yeah. But studio mode is also beneficial. Like if you're live and you need to adjust something in the moment, you can go to studio mode, select your scene, make the adjustment, and then make sure you go back to whatever scene is on the right before you're ready to switch. And then just cut off studio mode, and you're good to go. That takes care of my first ever how-to video, and also my first ever YouTube video. I know this video was long, and I'm sorry. And if you watch the entirety of this video, you're the real MVP, bud. I hope the timestamps helped. I hope this helped at least one person. But nonetheless, thank you guys for watching. If you would like to be connected with me, feel free to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, hit the like. That would be greatly appreciated. Also, if you want to check me out live, I'm live Monday through Wednesday on facebook.com/itskoozie. And then on Thursdays and Fridays, I'm over at twitch.tv/itskoozie. All of my stream times are at 7 p.m. Eastern. All right. I'm mainly playing games like Warzone and Among Us. And then sometimes on Friday nights, I do what's called the Koozie Concert Series, just a music stream where we vibe and, you know, hang out. So nonetheless, thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you. Don't stop being who you are. You are valued. You are loved. And I will see you guys on the next video. Take care.